It was a dark and stormy night, and Emily and her husband Mark were settling in for a cozy evening at home. They had just moved into their new house a few weeks ago, and were still getting used to the sounds and creaks that an old house made. As they sat on the couch watching TV, they heard a knock at the door. Mark got up to answer it, but when he opened the door, there was no one there. Confused, he stepped out onto the porch and looked around, but there was nobody in sight. As he turned to go back inside, he noticed a strange figure standing at the end of the street. It was too dark to make out any details, but Mark had an uneasy feeling in his gut. Over the next few days, strange things began to happen around the house. Objects would move on their own, doors would open and close by themselves, and they would hear strange noises at night. Emily and Mark tried to brush it off as their imagination, but the feeling of being watched never left them. One night, as they were getting ready for bed, they heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Thinking it was just their imagination again, they tried to ignore it. But the footsteps got closer and closer until they were right outside their bedroom door. Suddenly, the door flew open and the figure from the other night was standing in the doorway. It was a woman with long, tangled hair and a pale face staring at them with empty eyes. Emily and Mark screamed in terror, but the woman didn't move. She just stood there watching them. The next morning, Emily and Mark went to the police to report what had happened. But when they got to the station, they were told that there was no record of anyone matching the woman's description in the area. They were starting to think they were going crazy until they found an old newspaper article hidden in the attic. The article detailed the story of a woman who had lived in the house years ago. She had been accused of murdering her husband and children and was never found. Emily and Mark realized that they had been living with the ghost of the woman all along. They tried to leave the house, but the ghost would not let them go. She would follow them wherever they went, appearing at random times and scaring them to death. They eventually had to call in a team of paranormal investigators to help them rid the house of the ghostly presence. After a long and terrifying ordeal, the investigators finally managed to exorcise the ghost from the house. Emily and Mark were finally able to live in peace, but they would never forget the uninvited guest who had haunted them for so long.